Jai-Ho stared out the viewport of the massive alien ship. The stars looked wrong from here. He hadn't seen Earth's sun in over 3 months. He probably never would again. "Human, please follow," chirped the blue-skinned alien. Its 4 arms gestured toward the door. "Commander Tarek will see you now." Jai-Ho nodded and followed. He kept his shoulders slightly hunched, his steps hesitant, just as they expected, just as he'd been doing since they pulled him from the ruins of Seoul. The halls of the Celestial Harmony were filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some walked on 6 legs. Others floated. Many towered over Jai-Ho. All of them looked at him the same way, with pity, curiosity, or dismissal. The door to Commander Tarek's office slid open. The commander was a Vexeri, 7 feet tall, with red-scaled skin and muscles that rippled like steel cables. A warrior race, proud and strong. "Ah, the human specimen," Tarek said. His voice was deep and rumbling. "Sit, try not to strain yourself." Jai-Ho sat carefully, maintaining his facade of weakness. "Thank you for seeing me, Commander. The Coalition has assigned you as my diplomatic aide," Tarek said, not bothering to hide his disappointment. "You will help organize my meetings and translate my intentions to the softer species." "I'm honored," Jai-Ho said, lowering his eyes submissively. "Your medical officer will visit you daily. The Coalition is very interested in preserving the last known human." The words stung, but Jai-Ho had learned to control his reactions. 8 years in Earth's special forces had taught him patience. The aliens didn't need to know about that part of his life. "This is Dae-Sung of the Ellerin," Tarek said as another alien entered. Dae-Sung was small, with pale green skin that seemed to glow. His 6-fingered hands held a medical scanner. His large eyes blinked slowly at Jai-Ho. "I will monitor your health and adaptation," Dae-Sung said. His voice was soft and musical. "Humans are very fragile compared to most Coalition species." Jai-Ho smiled weakly. "I appreciate the care." "Show him to his quarters," Tarek ordered, already turning back to his work. "Give him light duties, nothing that might break him." Jai-Ho followed Dae-Sung out of the office, listening carefully as the medical officer explained the ship's layout. "The gravity is set slightly lower in your quarters," Dae-Sung said kindly. "Your bone density is concerning to us." "Thank you," Jai-Ho said, while mentally calculating how many Elorans he could disable before an alarm sounded. At least 3, he decided. They were peaceful healers with no combat training. Not that he would ever harm them. The Coalition had saved him, even if they treated him like a helpless child. But old habits died hard. Later that evening, Jai-Ho sat in his quarters reviewing Coalition data files. The aliens had freely given him access, seeing no threat from a human. Their mistake. He absorbed everything. Ship layouts, species weaknesses, weapon capabilities. A chime sounded at his door. "Enter," he called. A female alien with copper skin and 4 eyes stepped in. "I am Hana, Engineering Department. I was told to check that your room systems are functioning properly for human needs." Jai-Ho smiled genuinely for the first time that day. "Everything seems fine. Thank you." Hana tilted her head. "You are the last human. Our records show your species had many accomplishments despite your physical limitations." "We managed," Jai-Ho said simply. After she left, Jai-Ho returned to his studies. An alert flashed on his screen. A security briefing was happening on Deck 7. Using the access codes he'd memorized that morning, Jai-Ho patched into the briefing's audio feed. "The Scourge forces are massing near Outpost 9, someone was saying. "We need to strengthen our defenses." "What about the human?" another voice asked. "Should he be moved to a safer location?" Commander Tarek's voice was dismissive. "The human is no concern in military matters. He can barely lift a standard weapon, let alone use one." Jai-Ho switched off the feed and smiled grimly. "Let them think that. For now." He closed his eyes and began his nightly exercise routine, careful to keep his movements silent. The Coalition would learn about humans soon enough. 2 weeks passed aboard the Celestial Harmony. Ji-ho fell into a routine. Each morning, he organized Commander Tarek's meetings. Each afternoon, he filed reports. The work was simple. Too simple. Human, these documents need sorting, Tarek said, dropping a stack of files on Ji-ho's desk. Try not to tire yourself. Ji-ho nodded meekly. Yes, Commander. When Tarek left, Ji-ho finished the work in 20 minutes. It should have taken hours. He spent the rest of his time studying Coalition battle tactics on his datapad. They were good, but predictable. Too focused on direct confrontation. The door slid open, and Hannah entered. Her copper skin gleamed under the lights. Ji-ho, I brought you something, she said, placing a cup on his desk. It's similar to your Earth tea. He smiled. Thank you, Hannah. Over the past weeks, she had become his only friend on the ship. She treated him like a person, not a specimen. How is engineering? He asked. Busy. The Scourge attacks are increasing. She lowered her voice. Everyone is worried. Ji-ho nodded. The Scourge Dominion was a violent coalition of species that opposed the Galactic Coalition. Their attacks had grown bolder recently. I wish I could help, he said, playing his part. Hannah patted his shoulder gently. You help by staying safe. Humans are rare now. After she left, Ji-ho continued his research. The Scourge used hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly before coalition forces could respond. It reminded him of guerrilla warfare on Earth. That evening, Ji-ho went to the ship's observation deck. It was mostly empty. A few aliens nodded politely as he passed. He found a quiet corner and began stretching. Nothing too obvious, just enough to maintain his strength. On Earth, he had trained daily for hours. Here, he had to be careful. Your muscle tone is improving, said a voice behind him. Ji-ho turned quickly. Dae-sung stood watching him with those large, unblinking eyes. Just basic stretches, Ji-ho explained. For my health. The Elleran medical officer tilted his head. Interesting. Your species adapts quickly. We had to, Ji-ho said simply. Later that night, alarms blared throughout the ship. Ji-ho was pulled from sleep by flashing red lights. He quickly dressed and stepped into the corridor. Aliens rushed past him. No one paid him any attention. What's happening? He asked a passing crew member. Scourge attack on Outpost 7. The alien replied without stopping. Big one. Ji-ho made his way to the command center. He wasn't supposed to be there, but no one stopped him. In the chaos, a lone human was invisible. The command center was filled with officers staring at large screens. Commander Tarek stood in the center, barking orders. Move the 3rd Fleet to Sector 4. Strengthen the defensive line. Ji-ho studied the tactical display. The Scourge ships had split into 3 groups. 2 attacked from the front while the 3rd circled around. Classic flanking maneuver. They're going to hit you from behind, Ji-ho said quietly. A nearby officer, a tall insectoid alien, turned to him. What did you say, human? The 3rd group, Ji-ho pointed to the screen. They're not retreating. They're flanking you. The alien blinked compound eyes at him. How would you know? It's a basic tactic, Ji-ho explained. We used it on Earth. The officer clicked his mandibles dismissively. Commander Tarek knows what he's doing. Ji-ho stepped forward. Commander, the 3rd Scourge group is flanking your position. The command center went silent. Everyone turned to stare at the human who dared to speak. Tarek's red-scaled face darkened. Who let the human in here? Remove him. But sir, Ji-ho persisted, if you don't reinforce your rear guard. Enough, Tarek thundered. What would a human know of battle? Your kind barely mastered spaceflight before your planet fell. 2 security officers took Ji-ho's arms. He didn't resist as they let him out. In the corridor, Ji-ho heard new alarms. On the screens, the 3rd Scourge group attacked the coalition ships from behind, just as he had predicted. The first ships were already falling. The attack on Outpost 7 was a disaster. 37 coalition ships destroyed. Hundreds of lives lost. All because no one listened to Jaiho's warning. 3 days after the battle, Jaiho sat in the medical bay as Dae-sung ran his daily scans. "Your heart rate is elevated," the Ellerin noted. "Are you unwell?" "Just frustrated," Jaiho replied. All those deaths could have been prevented. Dae-sung's fingers moved over his medical tablet. "I heard you tried to warn them about the scourge attack pattern." "And no one listened." Jaiho stood up, forgetting to appear weak. He paced the room with strong, steady steps. Dae-sung watched him with widening eyes. "You move differently today." Jaiho realized his mistake. He quickly slumped his shoulders, but it was too late. "Your muscle responses are not consistent with our data on humans," Dae-sung said quietly. "You are stronger than you appear." Jaiho sighed. "Some humans were." "Show me," Dae-sung whispered. After a moment of hesitation, Jaiho nodded. He dropped into a fighting stance, then executed a perfect series of strikes and blocks. His movements were fast and precise. Nothing like the weak human the aliens thought they knew. Dae-sung's mouth fell open. "Remarkable. Why hide this? Would you tell everyone everything about yourself if you were the last of your kind?" Jaiho asked. The medical officer considered this. "I understand. Your secret is safe with me." Later that day, Jaiho met Hana in the ship's dining area. She looked tired. "Engineering is working overtime," she explained. "The scourge damaged many systems during the attack." Jaiho nodded sympathetically. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You tried to warn them." She leaned closer. "Some officers are talking about you now. They say you predicted the attack pattern." "It was obvious," Jaiho said. "At least, it should have been. Not to us." Hana stirred her food. "The Coalition has fought the scourge for decades, but we've never faced an enemy that thinks like they do." An idea formed in Jaiho's mind. What if someone could teach you how they think? Before Hana could answer, a maintenance worker approached their table. He had blue skin with yellow markings. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "I'm Sung-min. I fix things around the ship." Jaiho nodded politely. "Nice to meet you. I heard what you did in the command center," Sung-min continued. "You were right about the attack." "It doesn't matter now," Jaiho said. Sung-min glanced around, then lowered his voice. "It matters to those of us who lost friends. Some of us think the commander should listen to different voices." After Sung-min left, Hana looked at Jaiho with concern. "Be careful. The military leaders don't like being questioned." That evening, Jaiho received a message from Commander Tarek ordering him to report to the training room. When he arrived, Tarek was waiting with several other coalition officers. "Human," Tarek said coldly. "Explain how you knew the scourge attack pattern." Jaiho hesitated. The moment had come sooner than expected. "It's a basic flanking maneuver. We used similar tactics on Earth." "You? A human?" One officer laughed. "Your kind barely survived your own planet." Something snapped inside Jaiho. 8 years of Special Forces training. 3 years of active combat. Friends and family lost when Earth fell. All of it crashed through the careful wall he had built. "You know nothing about humans," he said, his voice hard. "Or about fighting." The room went silent. "Prove it," Tarek challenged. He pointed to a training mat. "Show us these human fighting skills." Jaiho looked around at the mocking faces, at Tarek's arrogant smile, at the weapons and defenses they thought he couldn't possibly understand. It was time to show them they were wrong. "As you wish, Commander," Jaiho said, stepping onto the mat. He settled into a combat stance, his movements suddenly precise and deadly. The aliens' expressions changed from amusement to confusion. And then Jaiho began to move. Jaiho moved like water. Fast, fluid, unstoppable. The first alien officer rushed at him. Jaiho sidestepped, hooked the alien's leg, and flipped him onto his back. The officer hit the mat with a loud thud. Two more officers attacked together. Ji-ho ducked under their grabbing arms. He struck pressure points that worked on nearly all species. Both aliens dropped to their knees, gasping. The room fell silent except for the heavy breathing of the defeated officers. Ji-ho stood calmly in the center of the mat, not even sweating. Commander Tarek stared with his mouth open. How is this possible? Humans are weak creatures. No, Ji-ho said firmly. We're not what you think. I was Special Forces on Earth. 8 years of training. 3 years of combat. Why hide this? Tarek demanded. Would you tell everything about yourself if you were the last of your species? I needed to understand who I could trust. Tarek circled Ji-ho slowly. Show me more. For the next hour, Ji-ho demonstrated human fighting techniques. Hand-to-hand combat. Pressure points. Using an enemy's weight against them. The aliens watched with growing interest. Your techniques are unusual, Tarek admitted, but effective. Ji-ho saw his chance. The Scourge fights differently than you do. But I understand their tactics. I can help. How? Tarek asked. Let me train a special team. Small, fast, using human combat methods. Tarek laughed. You want to train coalition warriors. You're just one human. One human who just defeated 3 of your officers, Ji-ho pointed out. The next day, Ji-ho was called to meet with the Coalition Council. 5 alien leaders sat at a large table. Commander Tarek stood to the side. We have reviewed the training room recordings, said a tall, thin alien with silver skin. Your combat skills are unexpected. Humans developed many ways to fight, Ji-ho explained. We had to. And you propose to teach these methods to our warriors? Asked another council member. Ji-ho nodded. A small team at first. Special operations against the Scourge. The council members whispered among themselves. Finally, the silver alien spoke. We will permit a trial program. You may select 5 volunteers for training. Thank you, Ji-ho said, bowing slightly. Do not thank us yet, human, the alien replied. Many doubt this will succeed. Ji-ho spent the next day reviewing personnel files. He needed the right team. People who would listen and adapt. Hana was his first choice. Her technical skills would be valuable, and she already trusted him. Me? I'm not a warrior, she protested when he asked her. That's why I need you, Ji-ho explained. You think differently. You solve problems. Dae-sun agreed to join as well. I can provide medical support and study how your techniques affect different species. Finding warriors was harder. Most were too proud to learn from a human. Finally, 3 volunteered. A Vexeri named Kwanho, a 4-armed centauri named Ta-jun, and a swift reptilian raptor named Jinwoo. Why did you volunteer? Ji-ho asked them during their first meeting. I saw you fight, Kwanho said simply. The Scourge killed my family, Ta-jun added. I will try any method to defeat them. Jinwoo flicked his tongue nervously. I am curious about human ways. Ji-ho looked at his small team. None were truly ready for what he planned to teach them. Starting tomorrow, you will learn to fight like humans, he announced. It won't be easy. It won't be like anything you've done before. We are the finest warriors in the coalition, Kwanho boasted. How hard can human training be? Ji-ho smiled. You'll see. The next morning, Ji-ho stood in the training room. His 5 team members arrived, looking confident. First lesson, Ji-ho said, picking up a training staff. In human combat, size and strength don't determine victory. He tossed the staff to Kwanho, the largest of the group. Attack me, Ji-ho ordered. Don't hold back. Kwanho grinned. As you wish, human. The Vexeri charged forward, and the real training began. Kwanho charged at Ji-ho with the training staff. He was fast for his size. His muscles rippled under red scales as he swung the weapon. Ji-ho didn't try to block the attack. That would be foolish against the stronger Vexeri. Instead, He stepped to the side at the last moment. As Quan Ho's momentum carried him forward, Ji-ho hooked his foot behind the alien's ankle and pulled. The 7-foot warrior crashed to the floor. The training staff clattered away. How? Quan Ho asked, looking up in surprise. I used your strength against you, Ji-ho explained. Human fighting isn't about being stronger, it's about being smarter. For 3 hours, Ji-ho taught his team basic moves. How to fall safely, how to use an opponent's weight and momentum. Simple strikes to sensitive areas. By the end, all 5 aliens were tired and confused. This feels wrong, Jin-woo complained, his reptilian tail twitching. We're trained to face our enemies directly. And that's why the Scourge keeps beating you, Ji-ho said bluntly. They don't fight fair. Neither should we. Taijun flexed his 4 arms. My people have always relied on our natural strength. And that's good, Ji-ho assured him. But imagine combining your strength with these techniques. The next day was worse. Ji-ho made them run, climb, and crawl for hours. Even Hana, who had never trained as a warrior, had to do everything. Why are we doing this? She asked, gasping for breath. Endurance, Ji-ho answered. Humans aren't the strongest or fastest, but we can keep going when others quit. By the 5th day, something changed. Quan Ho successfully used a human takedown move against Taijun. Jin-woo learned to use his quick reflexes with Ji-ho's techniques. Even Hana could now flip an opponent twice her size. They're improving faster than expected, Dae-sung noted as he treated their training injuries. Ji-ho nodded. Many of these moves work better with their bodies than with human bodies. Taijun can attack from 4 directions at once. Jin-woo's reflexes are twice as fast as mine. Word spread through the ship. Other coalition warriors came to watch the training. Some laughed. Others watched with growing interest. Commander Tarek visited often. Today he brought another alien. Tall and thin with gray skin that seemed to shift colors. This is Minho, Tarek introduced. A Scourge defector. He has information about their next attack. Minho studied Ji-ho carefully. I have heard stories about you, the human who fights differently. I just fight like a human, Ji-ho said simply. The Scourge know nothing of human combat, Minho said. This could be an advantage. That evening, Ji-ho gathered his team. Time for the next phase of training. Weapons. He had worked with some men to create training versions of earth weapons. Knives, batons, garrotes. Nothing fancy. Just effective. These are primitive, Jin-woo said, examining a knife. Sometimes primitive works best, Ji-ho replied. Energy weapons can be detected. Shields can stop blasters. But these are silent, deadly, personal. For 2 more weeks, they trained with the weapons. Ji-ho taught them to move as a team, covering each other's weaknesses. Quan Ho's strength, Taijun's multiple arms, Jin-woo's speed, Hana's technical skills, Dae-sung's medical knowledge. They became something new. Not just coalition warriors using human techniques, something better than either. During a break, Quan Ho approached Ji-ho. You said you were special forces on Earth. What does that mean? Ji-ho considered how to explain. Earth had many nations, many armies. Special forces were the best warriors. We trained harder, fought smarter, and took on the most dangerous missions. And your world still fell? Jin-woo asked. Yes, Ji-ho said quietly, but not because we couldn't fight. We were outnumbered. Our cities destroyed from orbit. We never stopped fighting. The aliens exchanged glances. This was not the story they had heard about humans. Show us more, Quan Ho said. Show us everything. Ji-ho smiled. Tomorrow, I'll show you how humans really fought. Not just one-on-one combat, but strategy, tactics, deception, things the Scourge won't expect. For the first time since Earth fell, Ji-ho felt something like hope. Your team is ready for a mission. Commander Tarek announced one morning. 4 weeks had passed since training began. Jai-Ho looked at his team. They had changed. Quan-Ho stood differently now, balanced and alert. Jin-Woo had lost his nervous tail twitching. Tai-Jun moved all 4 arms in perfect coordination. Hana held herself with new confidence. Even Dae-Sung seemed stronger. "What kind of mission?" Jai-Ho asked. "Simple recon," Tarek explained. "A small Scourge outpost near the Krell Nebula. Get in, gather intel, get out. No fighting unless necessary." Jai-Ho nodded. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow. 600 hours." After Tarek left, Jai-Ho gathered his team. "This is earlier than I expected. Are you ready?" "We're ready," Quan-Ho said firmly. The others nodded. "Then let's prepare," Jai-Ho said. "Hana, check our communication here. Jin-Woo, study the outpost layouts. Ta-Jun, weapons check. Dae-Sung, medical supplies." That night, Jai-Ho couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong about the mission. It seemed too easy. The next morning, they boarded a small stealth ship. Jai-Ho went through final checks with each team member. "Remember your training," he told them. "Move like shadows. Strike only when needed. Work together." The journey to the Krell Nebula took 5 hours. Gas clouds of purple and blue swirled outside the viewports. Their pilot, a silent Moven with 6 eyes, navigated carefully. Approaching drop point, the pilot announced. "Scourge outpost is on the small moon ahead." Jai-Ho studied the sensor readings. Only 10 life signs. Small outpost, as expected. The ship landed quietly behind a ridge of rocks. Jai-Ho led his team out onto the moon's surface. The gravity was light, making movement easier. "Stay in formation," Jai-Ho whispered over the comm. "Hana, scan for security systems." Hana activated her scanner. Minimal security. Automated turrets at the main entrance only. "Too easy," Jai-Ho muttered. His instincts screamed danger. They moved toward the outpost, using rocks for cover. No alarms sounded. No guards appeared. "Jin-Woo, take point," Jai-Ho ordered. "Your eyes work best in low light." The reptilian alien moved ahead, his scaled body blending with the shadows. He reached the outpost wall and signaled the all clear. One by one, they slipped inside through a maintenance hatch. The corridor was dark and quiet. "Central control room should be ahead," Hana whispered, checking her scanner. They moved forward in the formation Jai-Ho had taught them. Quan-Ho and Tai-Jun on the sides. Jin-Woo in front. Hana and Dae-Sung protected in the middle. Jai-Ho bringing up the rear, watching all directions. The control room door slid open automatically as they approached. Inside, screens glowed with data. But no Scourge. "Where is everyone?" Ta-Jun asked, his 4 hands gripping his weapons. "Hana, download the data quickly," Jai-Ho ordered. "Everyone else, defensive positions. Something's wrong." Hana plugged her device into the main console. "Downloading now." 2 minutes. Jai-Ho's instincts were screaming louder now. Quan-Ho, check the corridor. The Vexari warrior peered out. Clear, but... A loud alarm blared suddenly. Red lights flashed. Metal shutters slammed down over the door. "It's a trap," Jai-Ho shouted. "Download complete," Hana called. Sensors showed 20 Scourge troops approaching. Dae-Sung reported, looking at his scanner. "We're surrounded." Jai-Ho thought quickly. They expected coalition forces, not human tactics. "We use that against them." He pointed to an air vent in the ceiling. "Jin-Woo, can you fit through there?" The reptilian nodded. "Good. Take this." Jai-Ho handed him a small device he'd made. "Plant it on their ship's engine. Then create a distraction on the far side of the base." Jin-Woo disappeared into the vent. Jai-Ho turned to the others. "When the door opens, we don't fight our way out. We do something they won't expect." "What?" Quan-Ho asked. Jai-Ho smiled grimly. "We run straight at them." "Run at them?" That's madness. Quan Ho protested. Exactly, Jai-Ho said. They expect us to fight or surrender. They won't expect us to charge. Tai-Jun flexed his forearms nervously. What's the full plan? Jin-Woo creates a distraction. When the door opens, we rush out together. Quan Ho, you take point. Knock down whoever is directly ahead. The rest of us follow in your wake. We head straight for their landing zone. Their ships. Why? Hannah asked. Because Jin-Woo will have disabled one engine on their main ship. We steal it, using his sabotage as cover for our messy takeoff. A distant explosion rocked the outpost. Jin-Woo's distraction. Get ready, Jai-Ho ordered. The door's locks clicked. The metal shutter began to rise. Through the gap, they saw scourged soldiers with weapons raised. Now, Jai-Ho shouted. Quan Ho roared and charged forward. His massive body slammed into 3 surprised scourged soldiers, knocking them down. The team followed, running full speed through the corridor. Blaster fire lit up the walls around them. Jai-Ho felt heat as a shot barely missed his shoulder. He kept running, counting on the scourged surprise to work in their favor. Left turn, Jai-Ho called. Landing bay should be ahead. They rounded the corner and faced 5 more scourged soldiers. These weren't surprised. Their weapons were aimed and ready. Drop, Jai-Ho yelled. His team instantly dropped to the floor as Jai-Ho had taught them. The scourge fired, but their shots passed overhead. Before they could adjust their aim, Tai-Jun rolled forward and threw 4 small objects from his 4 hands. Flash grenades. The corridor filled with blinding light and noise. Move, Jai-Ho ordered. They jumped up and ran past the stunned scourged soldiers. Ahead, through an open doorway, they saw the landing bay. 3 scourged ships sat on the pad. Jin-Woo crouched behind cargo containers, waving at them. That one. Jai-Ho pointed to the largest ship. Jin-Woo sabotaged the left engine. They sprinted across the open bay. Alarms blared. More scourged soldiers poured in from side doors. Quan Ho, Tai-Jun, cover us, Jai-Ho shouted. Hannah, get that ship started. Hannah raced up the ship's ramp. Dae-Sung followed her. Jai-Ho stopped at the base of the ramp, providing covering fire with a blaster he'd taken from a fallen scourge. Quan Ho fought like a demon, using the human techniques Jai-Ho had taught him. He wasn't just stronger than the scourge. He was smarter, more unpredictable. Tai-Jun used all 4 arms to attack and defend simultaneously, confusing his opponents. Engines starting. Hannah called from inside the ship. Quan Ho, Tai-Jun, fall back, Jai-Ho ordered. The 2 warriors disengaged and ran for the ship. Jin-Woo sprinted from his hiding place, moving faster than any scourge could track. Inside the ship, Hannah worked the controls. I can fly it, but that damaged engine will make takeoff rough. Just get us out of here, Jai-Ho said, strapping himself in. The ship lifted off, listing heavily to one side. Scourge blaster fire bounced off the hull. Hang on, Hannah called. The ship lurched forward, crashing through the landing bay doors. They burst into open space, the damaged engine trailing smoke. Coalition Command, this is Special Operations Team 1, Jai-Ho transmitted. Mission complete. We have the intel and a captured scourge vessel. There was a long pause before Commander Tarek's voice came through. How? The mission was compromised. We detected 20 scourge ships converging on your position. Human tactics, Commander, Jai-Ho replied simply. The team looked at each other, exhausted but alive, bloodied but successful. What now? Jin-Woo asked, his reptilian eyes fixed on Jai-Ho. Now, Jai-Ho said, we show the coalition how to fight a war the human way. As they approached the celestial harmony, Jai-Ho knew everything had changed. No one would think humans were helpless anymore. 2 months passed. Jai-Ho's success changed everything. The Coalition Council gave him a new title, Combat Instructor. His team grew from 5 to 50. then to 500. Each day, Jai-Ho taught human fighting methods, hand-to-hand combat, stealth, guerrilla tactics, things the Coalition had never used before. "Your techniques work," Commander Tarek admitted one day. "The Scourge doesn't know how to counter them." Jai-Ho nodded. "Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We got very good at it." News came that the Scourge was planning something big, a final strike against the Coalition homeworlds. "They're gathering their fleet here." Tarek showed Jai-Ho a star map. "Our intelligence says they will attack in 3 days." Jai-Ho studied the map carefully. "Their fleet is too large for us to defeat in open battle." "Then we are doomed," Tarek said grimly. "No," Jai-Ho replied. "We don't fight the way they expect. We fight the human way." Jai-Ho called a meeting with all his team leaders. Quan Ho was now an officer. Tai Jun led the infiltration units. Jin Wu trained scouts. Hana headed the technical division. Dae Sung ran the medical corps. "The Scourge expects a traditional space battle," Jai-Ho explained. "We won't give them one." "What will we do?" Quan Ho asked. Jai-Ho smiled. "Something they'll never expect. We'll attack them before they attack us." The plan was pure human strategy. While the main Coalition fleet positioned itself defensively, small teams of Jai-Ho's fighters would infiltrate the Scourge fleet in captured enemy ships. They would strike from within, creating chaos and confusion. "It's never been done before," an admiral protested. "That's why it will work," Jai-Ho insisted. 2 days later, 20 disguised ships approached the Scourge fleet. Jai-Ho led the main strike team. Quan Ho, Ta Jun, and Jin Wu accompanied him. Hana guided them from the command ship, monitoring communications. "Stay calm," Jai-Ho told his team as their ship was cleared to dock with the Scourge flagship. "Remember your training." They docked without incident. The Scourge didn't suspect anything. Jai-Ho's team moved through the ship in small groups, planting explosives at key points. Other teams did the same throughout the fleet. "All teams report ready." Hana's voice came through Jai-Ho's earpiece. "Awaiting your signal." 3 minutes, Jai-Ho replied. He turned to his team. "Let's head back to our ship." They were just 10 meters from their docking bay when a Scourge patrol rounded the corner. The alien soldiers recognized them immediately. "Intruders," one shouted, raising his weapon. "So much for stealth," Quan Ho muttered, drawing his blade. The fight was brief but intense. Jai-Ho's team moved like water, flowing around their enemies' attacks and striking vital points. But a stray blaster shot caught Dae Sung in the shoulder. The medical officer fell with a cry of pain. "Cover me," Jai-Ho shouted, racing to Dae Sung's side. Another shot fired. Jai-Ho didn't think. He threw himself over Dae Sung. The blast hit him in the back, sending fire through his body. Quan Ho roared with rage. The Vexari warrior charged forward, taking down 3 Scourge soldiers in seconds. Ta Jun and Jin Wu finished the rest. Jai-Ho was hit. Ta Jun called, rushing to his side. Through waves of pain, Jai-Ho pressed his detonator. "Get to the ship." Now. They carried Jai-Ho and Dae Sung back to their vessel. As they pulled away from the Scourge flagship, explosions began to ripple through the enemy fleet. "All teams report successful detonation." Hana's voice came through, tight with worry. "Jai-Ho, what's your status?" "I'm hit," Jai-Ho managed to say. "But the mission is complete." From their ship, they watched the Scourge fleet fall into chaos. Ships collided as power systems failed. Communication was disrupted. When the Coalition fleet arrived, the battle was already half won. Jai-Ho felt darkness creeping at the edges of his vision. The last thing he saw was Quan Ho's worried face above him. "The human tactics worked," Quan Ho said. "Hold on, Jai-Ho. Just hold on." Then everything went black. Bright light hurt Jai-Ho's eyes when he finally opened them. He was in the medical bay of the Celestial Harmony. Machines beaked around him. His body felt heavy and stiff. "He's awake." Hana's voice came from nearby. Her copper face appeared above him, all four eyes blinking rapidly. "Jaiho, can you hear me?" "Yes," he croaked. His throat was dry. "How long?" "6 days," Dae-sung answered, stepping into view. The medical officer's arm was in a sling. "The blast damaged your spine. We weren't sure if you would wake up." "The battle?" Jaiho asked. "A complete victory," Kwanho's deep voice rumbled. The Vexari warrior stood at the foot of the bed. The Scourge fleet was destroyed. Their leaders captured. The war is over. Jaiho tried to sit up but couldn't move his legs. Fear flashed through him. "I can't move." "Be calm," Dae-sung said. "The damage is healing, but it will take time." Over the next 2 weeks, Jaiho slowly recovered. Feeling returned to his legs bit by bit. His team visited him every day. They brought news of the coalition's celebration, of the honors being planned for Jaiho and his fighters. "The Coalition Council wants to see you when you're able," Ta-jun told him. "They're calling you the savior of the Alliance." Jaiho shook his head. "I just taught what I knew. You all did the fighting." "With human tactics," Jinwoo said, his reptilian tail swishing excitedly. "They're updating all the records about humans. No one will ever call your species weak again." 1 month after the battle, Jaiho walked slowly into the council chamber. He still needed a cane, but he refused any other help. 5 high-backed chairs faced him. The 5 leaders of the Galactic Coalition. "Jaiho of Earth," the first counselor said, "you have done what many thought impossible. You have saved the Coalition and ended the war." Jaiho bowed his head. "I had help. My team deserves the credit." "They will be honored," another counselor assured him. "But it was your knowledge, your human combat methods, that made victory possible." The central counselor, an ancient being with silver skin, stood. "We have a proposal for you, Jaiho of Earth. We wish you to establish a permanent combat academy to teach human fighting techniques to future generations of Coalition defenders." Jaiho was speechless for a moment. "I would be honored." "There is more," the counselor continued. "Our deep space explorers found something near the ruins of your solar system. Something you should see." A side door opened. A small figure walked in, looking nervous and uncertain. Jaiho stared in disbelief. The newcomer was human, a woman with short, dark hair and cautious eyes. "This is Sunhai," the counselor said. "She was found in a damaged cryopod, drifting in space. She says she was part of an evacuation ship from Earth's final days." Jaiho stepped forward slowly, his cane forgotten. "Another human. You're really human." Sunhee nodded. "Yes. Are you? Are you really Jaiho?" "The soldiers who found me said there was only one other human left." "Not anymore," Jaiho said, his voice breaking. He wasn't alone. After all this time, he wasn't the last one. 6 months later, the Combat Academy opened. Jaiho stood at the entrance, watching as recruits from 20 different species filed in. Kwanho now served as his second in command. Ta-jun, Jinwoo, Hana, and Dae-sung were all instructors. Sunhai stood beside him. She had adapted quickly, just as he had. Humans were good at adapting. It was their strength. "Do you think there might be more of us out there?" she asked quietly. "I hope so," Jaiho replied. "But even if there aren't, we've made our mark here." On the wall behind them hung a new plaque. It read, "Humans, classified as an apex predator species. Physical strength, moderate. Intelligence, high. Adaptability, exceptional. Combat potential, unmatched." No one would ever think humans were helpless again. The end.